This episode of Dorking Out is brought to you by Crass App. Need to pay someone, but you don't have the money yet? The Crass App sends a notification that makes the payee think they've been paid, but they haven't. By the time they figure out that they haven't been paid, you will have the money to pay them, and you can place the blame right on us. Crass App. You may not have money, but you can still buy some time.
And SnipRecruiter. If you're having a baby boy and your religious or cultural heritage call for circumcision, a posting with us can have your delivery date posted to over 100 of the top circumcision sites with just one click. Try us for free at sniprecruiter.com/dorking.
Houston, flight is go.
Myla, let's go. SPM. Safety console.
From Assignment X, Amalgamated Storytelling, and thesoniashow.com, it's Dorking Out with Sonia Mansfield and Christopher Allen Smith.
Welcome to episode 51 of Dorking Out, a podcast for people who like to dork out about stories and the stories and culture that we love. That means TV and movies, books and podcasts, and everywhere and everything else where you find stories that interest you. This is the Mummy Dearest edition. With me today is my co-host, professional writer and author of The Sonia Show, Sonia Mansfield.
Hey there.
Hello.
With me today is my co-host, Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and nerd author, Christopher Allen Smith. In this week's episode, we review the first and maybe the last installment in Universal's Dark Universe, The Mummy, starring Tom Cruise. In our second segment, Peter Brown from Assignment X joins us to talk about the Dark Universe, counting your movie franchise eggs before they're hatched, Marvel's new Black Panther trailer, and what the success of Wonder Woman means for the DC Universe. We're talking about the whole messy subject of cinematic universes, the latest blockbuster trend that may or may not be fizzling out. All of that, plus what we're dorking out about this week. We've got a lot to talk about, so let's get this podcast started.
This is Tomorrowland, a land inspired by science fact and fantasy.
Topic 1. Universal's kickoff to its new dark universe, The Mummy, opened this weekend to a pretty disappointing $32.2 million. The movie stars Tom Cruise as Nick Morton, a soldier of fortune who steals valuable relics and sells them to the highest bidder. And Nick stumbles across an ancient burial ground because, of course, he does, and accidentally wakens a 3,000-year-old mummy played by Sofia Boutella? Did I pronounce that right? Let's say I did.
I don't know. Do you ever? Sorry.
No, I'm always wrong. The movie also stars Jake Johnson, Annabelle Wallis, and Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll and Russell Crowe as Mr. Hyde. Yes, that Dr. Jekyll and that Mr. Hyde. The movie is written by a whole bunch of writers that have worked on various Mission Impossible movies. I was going to list them all, but I've changed my mind. So all those like Mummy Impossible jokes you're seeing, those are pretty accurate. And the movie is directed by Alex Kurtzman, whose previous directing credit is 2012's People Like Us, which I've never seen. Have you seen it?
No, but now that you're mentioning it, I'm pretty sure that was Chris Pine's first movie after the 2009 Star Trek, or one of his first movies after the 2009 Star Trek, and it fizzled pretty spectacularly.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
It looks like kind of a drama, not really.
Yes, that's right.
Sci-fi action.
Yeah.
Kurtzman's probably better known for his role in creating TV shows. So he's worked on like Sleepy Hollow and Fringe, and he's working on the upcoming Star Trek Discovery, which I'm sure Smith already knew. He also wrote some Transformer movies and the first two installments of the Star Trek reboot. This is a long way of saying that there are a lot of cooks in this kitchen. And there is a lot riding on this movie since it's supposed to be launching a new franchise. And we're going to talk about that a lot in topic 2. That's all we're talking about in topic 2. And I feel like that might be the movie's biggest problem. Like it's more about setting up a franchise and universe building than about being a good movie. And one of the things I always ask when I see a movie is, who is this movie for? And I think fans of classic Universal monster movies are probably not going to like this version of The Mummy.
Right.
I think this movie wants to be like for Marvel and DC fans. It wants to be a comic book movie, but it's just not as fun or as entertaining and it just doesn't have the stories or the ideas that are worth exploring. Smith, what did you think of The Mummy?
I thought it was a somewhat interesting train wreck, in that half of the movie actually is pretty enjoyable and fun and has some cool ideas about, creepy elements of what, how mummies were created and why they were created and kind of, ancient Egyptian curses and all that stuff. And the other half was, we've got to set up this connected universe of Universal Marvel movies or Universal monster movies. For those of you who don't know, Universal back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s had a pretty robust stable of successful monster movies like Frankenstein, the Boris Karloff Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon. So they had all these, and I think they had a couple crossovers like Wolfman versus Frankenstein or something. I don't know exactly. This is their plan, with this movie, and they announced this, I don't know, like half a year ago, that this is going to be their dark universe. They're going to take all these monsters, put them into a series of movies. But I don't know any fans that have been clamoring for this. So it's like half of this movie is a detour away into all these other things. And then it kind of comes back to the Mummy movie for a while, which I think is kind of interesting. I like Tom Cruise's performance in this. He's very kind of a douchebag, cad, jerk off kind of character that's kind of dumb. A lot of times, like in his Jack Reacher movies, he's always the smartest, strongest, quickest, toughest guy in the room. And here he's not. He's kind of a dolt. He's kind of a bumbler. And he kind of is rash, which are kind of fun qualities to see in an action movie hero. Getting himself into trouble and kind of being the dumb guy in the room. But just the myriad of jobs that this single movie is trying to do, I think it fails pretty resoundingly.
Yeah.
And there are a couple left turns in terms of tone that stop this movie dead in its tracks. So the reason I say it's kind of frustrating or strange is because you can see a good Mummy movie in here that could have been really cool, really creepy. You see good characters in here that could have been a lot of fun, but then it's just, there's you can almost see the moments at which the other cooks step into the kitchen and start ripping stuff out or throwing stuff in or flipping the table over. And it's just there has not been a more messy movie that I can remember seeing in a while.
To use a term that you've used a few times to talk about movies, you will say it is aggressively mediocre. This movie is aggressively mediocre. It actually has 17% on Rotten Tomatoes. I actually think that's really harsh. But it's, I don't think it's that bad of it's not like 17% on Rotten Tomatoes bad, but it's not a very good movie. It's, it doesn't, because there's so many cooks, it doesn't know what it wants to be. Like, does it want to be a monster movie? Does it want to be like a Mission Impossible style action movie? Does it want to be a horror movie?
Sometimes.
But it doesn't all like gel together.
Right.
There's like a couple of kind of entertaining action sequences, like the plane crash that they show actually in all the trailers. That's pretty cool. There's some stuff underwater that's pretty cool, but it's surrounded by characters that I'm mostly indifferent to. And they're spouting this like exposition that goes, where I'm just like boring. And then there's like these weird jokes, especially between Tom Cruise and Annabelle Wallis, who's playing an archaeologist named Jenny, that just land like with a thud, just like, every time. And we kind of talked about this on the phone the other day, where I feel bad because I don't want to single her out like she's a huge problem with the movie or something, because she really isn't. This movie has a lot of problems, but I can't help but think if they had just put somebody a little bit more interesting in that lead role, it might have made for just a slightly better movie. Right. Because this actress, I don't even know what else she's been in. I didn't look it up. She's so boring. She's so vanilla.
Yeah.
That like she cannot match Tom Cruise at all.
No, I agree. And that's the thing is a lot of times in movies like this, they'll put an actor in there that the part is thankless. It's I'm the expositioner in chief, and I've got to explain stuff, and I'm never at the center of the action, but I have to be here in all these scenes. And, in years gone past, that would be like a Steven Zahn, or, like it could be where you see or you could put it like Sarah Silverman, or you could put by putting a specific actress or actor in there that has some sort of charge on their own, they can take this completely boring, featureless character and do something with it.
Yeah, she doesn't have any spark at all.
Yeah, she cannot do it.
And she actually highlights like another problem that I had, where either there's two things that are going on, and I can't figure out what it is. Either the movie's pretending that Tom Cruise is like 30 something, which he isn't.
Right.
Or like there's just there's an age difference. She's probably in her 20s.
Right.
And we're supposed to believe that she's an archaeologist, whatever.
Maybe 30s, but yeah. Yeah.
It's just a little weird.
Yeah, it is. Oh, keep going. Sorry.
Because there's like this thing at the beginning where like, it's not any kind of spoiler. It happens in like the first like 10 or 15 minutes. Like she's like, we had a one night stand, it was a really short one night stand, kind of thing. And that's kind of a joke you make about a young dude.
Yeah.
It's not a joke you make about an old guy. Like the joke should be like, thank God for Viagra or whatever. Like it's just a little thing where I think the movie thinks Tom Cruise is a little younger than he is.
Yeah. I did notice the difference in their ages, and I think they could have done something with the different. I thought that actually opening scene, that specific line of banter and how it echoes for a couple scenes, was the only fun part between those two. And it was not admittedly all that fun. I think, but what I did enjoy about it, and I am liking this in Tom Cruise's kind of later stage, is it used to be he had to be the smartest, coolest guy in all the rooms he was in. Like if you're looking at like a Mission Impossible 2 or something, he was all badass, no humor, whatever, and it was just boring. But by the time you get to like Mission Impossible 5, part of the charm is watching him try to juggle all the pieces and almost not make it up. There's a little bit of a Harrison Ford, John McClane thing going on where he's just able to keep ahead of the chaos and he's not always sure he can do it.
By the way, everyone, he said John McClane from Die Hard, not John McCain. We're not saying that, Tom Cruise is doing insane rambling that
all right, enough with the politics. Sweet Christmas, can't we have a break ever? Sorry.
Never.
Anyway,
they should do a fun like mummy drinking game, by the way. And every time the Jenny character calls out Nick, you could do a shot.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
Because that's like a good 1 hour of the movie right there.
Yeah.
It's just her going, Nick!
Yeah, exactly.
Nick!
And I liked him being the butt of a lot of the jokes. I thought that was actually seeing somebody with his screen persona get made fun of could be a lot of fun. But
it's true. I do like watching Tom Cruise get punched in the face.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, and I did like the dynamic between him and the mummy. It was an interesting, different kind of relationship between kind of the monster and the monster slayer. or it could have been interesting. It seemed like it was interesting for a little bit, and then it just kind of, like a lot of things, kind of got dropped. This was
because there's this whole thing about like, he's supposed to be torn between kind of good and evil and which way is he going to go and all that. But they don't really explore it. It's like one of the many ideas they kind of throw out and then they ditch.
Yeah.
And I want to say, like, Sofia Boutella, or however I'm going to ruin her name.
Yes.
She played the alien in last year's Star Trek.
Yeah.
She's good as the mummy. Like, I don't want to dismiss her as like, oh, she is actually pretty good given what they ask her to do.
Yeah.
In prep for, so after I saw this version of the Mummy, I came home and my husband and I watched the 1932 original and the 1959 Hammer Studio version. And I had never seen them, so this was very, very exciting. One of the things that I thought was so interesting was in both of those movies, the Mummy, you kind of feel almost a little sorry for the Mummy because he's actually kind of acting out of love. Yeah. Like he's trying to protect like his dead princess, that sort of thing. Whereas in this one, like she's just a mummy who wants to destroy the world. Yeah,
that is something. I'm glad that you brought that up because that is something that's what's kind of special about these Universal monsters is there was always they're very creepy and scary and horrible, but at a certain point you could kind of identify with them. So like
Frankenstein, you feel bad for Frankenstein.
Yeah, you're heartbroken for Frankenstein, and even though King Kong is not one of these movies, it's got that same dynamic where by the end of King Kong, you're rooting for the ape,
right?
And it's a tragedy and it's heartbreaking. And I can't remember the last time a hero or a villain in one of these types of movies was portrayed in that kind of, you feel for them, you're a little bit heartbroken for them, even while you want to see their scheme get disrupted. Maybe Captain America: Civil War a little bit,
right?
But yeah, that is an interesting. I think that is one of the truths of this tidal wave of blockbuster style movie making that's happening in recent years is it's just this one kind of movie that gets made, or this movie that tries to land with a certain level of blockbuster hype and splash. But B, a lot of these movies are just not coloring with all the emotional brushes that movies similar to them have done in the past. And I think that's actually one of the things that's different with the Marvel movies is the range of tones and the range of characters and the range of humor and character moments is much wider in these than most of these other things. And yeah, that would have been. So I think that's what brings me back to The Mummy is that there's a lot of interesting stuff here that is kind of crushed under all the other storytelling and financial studio ambitions baggage that's been rested onto it.
And we're not going to, I don't want to spoil the ending, but I really hated the ending.
Oh, the ending is that's the thing is.
We're not going to spoil it here, but.
No.
But I'm not recommending this movie to anybody, but I also don't want to spoil it for people who want to see it. It's a pretty terrible ending.
Oh, man. Okay, so we're not going to talk about the ending, but we're going to talk around the ending, and we're not going to spoil it. We really are not. They could have gone in a direction that would have been really interesting, really daring, and I think garnered a lot of the, oh, wow, look at what Universal's doing with these movies. They're not going in the direction we expected. Let's pay to, maybe we should see the next one. Instead, they go in the most obvious, feel-good BS direction in such a way that you don't even, like, watching the movie, I'll have to say, now that I think about it, I don't really understand that ending. Like
Yeah.
the ending doesn't look like it fits on the end of this movie in any way, shape, or form. It's one of our
Well, I think
well,
it's
you know
just
what?
an example
Yeah,
of like this was all just to set up the next movie.
right.
That's what that ending was to me. And it's a bummer because we sat through this other movie that's not very good. But if they had really made a good ending,
Right.
you would be like, well, I'm disappointed this wasn't a good movie. But that ending was, yeah, that was an awesome ending. And I'm going to see the next one. But
Yeah,
instead, it was
I agree.
as you say, aggressively mediocre movie that had an ending that made me go, what?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's really, really not. Yeah, that's the thing is, and I've said it before, and I'll say it a million times more. If you can stick the ending, everybody can get a story started and kind of get a couple miles down the track. But if you have a bad ending or bleed out with the ending, it is death. And I think that's what happened here. And it will be, we'll talk about this with Peter in the next segment, but it is going to be very interesting to see what happens with this, with Universal's Dark Universe series of movies.
Yes.
Holy smokes. I think they have some serious problems ahead of them.
Yeah. Let's get on to topic 2 so we can talk about it. Hey, want more dorking out?
Yep.
You can visit our website at dorkingoutshow.com.
You can.
And you can like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter.
On Twitter.
Do you listen to us on iTunes?
Yep.
It's cool.
It's cool.
We won't tell anyone.
Nope.
Please take a few minutes out of your busy day of pretending to work while you watch cat videos to give us a review on iTunes.
Cat videos.
For some reason, iTunes really cares about reviews, and it helps us attract more listeners. And you want us to have more listeners and be popular and cool, don't you?
Yep.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
And now, on with the show.
Yeah. It has been a mere 9 years since Robert Downey Jr. strapped on an Iron Man suit and starred in Marvel's Studios' first movie, Iron Man. That movie, with its little tease at the end hinting at a larger cinematic universe with the Avengers, launched the biggest blockbuster revolution Hollywood has ever seen, or at least since the 1977 Star Wars, by creating a series of movies with elements that connected to other movies. This Marvel series of movies has become more than sequels. They've created an entire alternate movie universe that moviegoers cannot seem to get enough of. Or to put it another way, a pretty accurate way of thinking about Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which came out a couple weeks ago to massive profits, is to think of it as Iron Man 15. It is the 15th movie in the universe that Iron Man created. That is a massive temptation for the copycat happy suits in Hollywood. All the other studios are looking to get into the lucrative action of having a series of movies build and have spin-offs and crossovers in a huge Marvel-style Avengers 1, Avengers 2, Captain America Civil War, which is to say a series of movies that build up to $1 billion, a stable of $1 billion movies cranking out once or twice a year. Marvel is doing it at this point. But while the other studios are eager to copy Marvel's success, almost all of them have failed. Sony tried to create a Spider-Man connected universe with the Amazing Spider-Man series, announcing a Sinister Six movie, a Venom movie, and a Black Cat movie before the Amazing Spider-Man 2 had even come out. When it did come out, it crashed, burned, and took plans of Sony's Spider-Man universe into the crapper with it. While Universal has been trying to create a connected universe with The Mummy, melding together a trove of monster characters, Wolfman, Frankenstein, Dracula, The Mummy, Creature from the Black Lagoon, what a lot of people don't know is they have already failed at doing exactly this once before. Dracula Untold, which came out a couple years ago, was supposed to be the real Iron Man-style secret launch of the Universal's Dark Universe. But when that crashed at the box office, Universal pulled back, got The Mummy going with Tom Cruise, and gave it a second shot. Now we have Warner Brothers attempting to get in the game with their DC universe, which we've talked about several times on this show with varying degrees of success. But Wonder Woman seems to have finally got them on track. Joining us today is Associate Editor of Assignment X, Peter Brown, to talk about the state of these cinematic universes. It's not good enough to have a successful franchise anymore where you just crank out sequel after sequel after sequel to a movie. Now you have to have spin-offs and side stories and different characters having their own series within the connected universe that these studios are trying to create. All of that is a long way of saying, Peter Brown.
Very long.
Oh, don't you get started. I think we both know who the queen of long introductions is, and it might be me. But
it might be you.
Peter Brown, first off, since
Yes.
we're talking about connected universes, what did you think of Wonder Woman? We've talked about how DC has been off track and has been rough riding it with Batman versus Superman, Man of Steel, which we both like, but audiences were kind of lukewarm over.
Right.
For a year, we've both been nervous, given DC's track record, about Wonder Woman. Now Wonder Woman's come out. I've already raved about it. Sonia's already raved about it. What did you think?
I'll join in the chorus with the raving. I totally enjoyed it. I think it shows that DC can actually do this, and they actually have the wherewithal and the creativity that they can make a good movie that is a good superhero movie without maybe some controversy, because there just always seems to be some sort of controversy in every single film they've done up until this point. Man of Steel with killing the guy at the end, and Batman v Superman with the Batman killing everybody. Is always seems to center around people getting killed for some reason.
Right.
Suicide Squad just being awful. So now they've shown that, hey, we can do this. Look, this movie's good. The cast is good. The story's good. It has lots of action. It's fun. It's funny too, which is something that also DC Cinematic Universe movies have been criticized for. They're too serious. So yeah, I really enjoyed Wonder Woman a ton. I think they hit it out of the park, and I don't care about whether it was too feminist or not feminist enough. None of that matters. I was just happy to enjoy a movie without having to worry about what I think other people were going to think the day after, because I knew this one was that good. So yeah, really a big fan.
I like how she's so heroic. I mean, compared to, I haven't even seen actually Man of Steel or Batman v Superman, so I guess I'm speaking out of turn. But those seemed like such bummers. I just like how positive this movie is, and that she seems so heroic. And I'm wondering if that's why people have connected to it so much, because it's just a little bit more upbeat.
No, I definitely think you're right. I definitely think there's something to that.
I think so too. I think you're right, and I think it also has to do with the fact that they didn't go out of their way to make it too complex. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times, especially in Batman v Superman, they had too much going on, and they wanted to do too much in such a short amount of time. And the extended version, which they released onto video, which was a much better movie, but I think it was clocking in at like 3.5 hours or something like
That's
that,
ridiculous.
which is ridiculous, right?
Right.
But it made it a much better movie because it explained things, and it actually made the movie flow a little bit better. So they're trying to do way too much. In this one, they had a direct kind of line as to how they wanted to go, and they were not willing to kind of deviate too much from that line, which I think made it a better overall movie compared to some of the other ones we've seen.
Do you think Justice League now goes back into reshoots to add more Wonder Woman?
I believe Justice League was already slated for some reshoots. I've heard, Joss Whedon, because of the situation going on with Zack Snyder, Joss Whedon
Yes.
is going to be actually directing those. And supposedly he had a hand in writing them. The rumor is they're quote unquote extensive reshoots, but you never really know because there were supposed to be big reshoots on Suicide Squad that was supposedly wrecked the movie, and there were big reshoots on Rogue One, Star Wars Rogue One, and that movie was fantastic. So you can't really. I think we've admonished people before that reshoots don't necessarily mean trouble.
Well, I'm just wondering, do they add more Wonder Woman?
Oh, yeah, it's true. Yeah, no.
Maybe they do. Yeah, I think, if you saw like the original trailer that they had for that, she was in it quite a bit already. So my guess is they probably were going to continue to have her in there a lot regardless, just because she already had her own movie. And I don't think the other guys have their movies before Justice League. Am I right about that? I think Justice League comes out before Aquaman and The Flash, I think.
It does.
Well, sounds like everything's going to come out before The Flash. Because
but I think there was rumors that Josh Whedon had taken over Justice League long before they announced that he had. So actually he had been already working on it for quite a while, because they didn't even announce that Zack Snyder, well, maybe they did, that he had the tragedy. But I think as soon as that happened, I think he abandoned the movie and Josh took the reins. But I think, but they didn't announce that until a month later or something. So he had already been working on it for a while. So who knows how much of a difference that's going to make in terms of how that movie comes about. I mean, hopefully it will be better.
Right. So I'd like to step back and kind of look at what's happened since Marvel got this ball rolling several years ago. It seems like every studio has announced either their own cinematic universe that they're going to start with, or they're transforming their current franchises into cinematic universes of their own. Fast and the Furious supposedly is getting a spinoff with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Jason Statham. The Fantastic Beasts series is essentially a connected series to the original Harry Potter, and apparently that's turning more into a series of prequels to Harry Potter. Transformers itself, the series, Michael Bay's series, has made kind of a lot of headway in the way Hollywood is currently thinking about that, which is they got a bunch of writers together in a television-style writer's room, thought up a bunch of ideas, and now they're starting spin-offs, they're starting sequels, which is just this is where the whole connected universe thing and just a series of sequels I find kind of confusing, because it's just like we're just getting, with Transformers, it's just going to be more Transformers movies with other Transformers. It's not a connected universe. That's not a
connected universe. That's just a sequel.
That's just
Chris,
a lot
you're probably
of
excited about that, though. Right?
Yeah, but Smith's probably really excited.
You're probably extremely excited. There's going to be much more Transformers coming.
That just means your box set is
all
out
right,
of date
we
now.
got it. I've seen the Transformers movie. Sweet Christmas. All right, but then we got, if we talk about like the Ghostbusters, last year's Ghostbusters, they announced we're having a series of movies with the female Ghostbusters. Then we're going to have a couple movies with the male Ghostbusters. Then we're going to have a prequel movie set in the Old West where a villain is created. Then we're going to have kind of a Avengers boy Ghostbusters and girl Ghostbusters working together to defeat this villain. They had all of that mapped out. And I think, Sonia, you said something about the studios. The main problem with this and why they keep failing is they're trying too much too fast.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and they're, like I said before, they're kind of counting their movie franchises before they're hatched. Like for the Dark Universe, for the Mummy. So the Mummy is their second attempt now at doing this Dark Universe. And then they come out a couple weeks ago and they're like, yes, we're doing a whole Dark Universe, and it's going to be Tom Cruise and the Mummy, and Johnny Depp as the Invisible Man, and Javier Bardem as Frankenstein's monster, and Russell Crowe, and there's rumor as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and then there's these rumors of The Rock playing the Wolfman.
Right.
They're announcing all of this stuff, and they're committing to all of this stuff before the first movie even comes out. And now The Mummy has come out. It made a totally weak $32 million, and it's got 17% on Rotten Tomatoes. And now they're committed.
Or supposedly.
To these movies, including, one of them is already in production, is Bride of Frankenstein.
Oh, that's right.
Is already in production.
I got to say, as down as I am about the Dark Universe thing, I do want to see Javier Bardem as Frankenstein's monster. That sounds fantastic.
It's presumptuous.
It is.
To assume that,
definitely.
and here's the thing about the original Universal monster movies was they weren't like some connected universe. It's just they made a bunch of monster movies
that people liked.
And that people liked, and then they eventually connected them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And they're just assuming like, hey, you're going to like our movies, jerks, and it's just, it bothers me. It bugs me. And the reason I'm super annoyed about the whole idea of the Dark Universe, and I do want them to be good, by the way, I don't root for movies other than Transformers to fail. It's because the monsters are the stars of those movies. And the idea of like making this announcement, like Johnny Depp, Javier Bardem, Russell Crowe, The Rock, blah, blah, all this stuff. It's not about the monsters. It's about the stars they're getting for their movies. And that's even, I don't think DC and Marvel even did that. Like, I think people were more excited, like, oh my God, they're making an Iron Man movie. Oh my God, they're making a Captain America movie. Like, they were excited about the characters.
Exactly.
It wasn't about the casting.
Yeah.
Right. Which is some of the first time they ever had any of those characters actually come out on the big screen. Like, they never had Iron Man before.
It was not a big announcement that like, that they got Gal Gadot to play Wonder Woman. It's that they were making a Wonder Woman movie. Like, that's what was exciting.
Right.
And that's why I feel like the Dark Universe is just doing it all backwards.
Yeah.
Well, what were you going to say, Peter?
Oh, I was just going to say, you start, if you look at Marvel, obviously that's like the gold standard, right? Of how to build a franchise, and what they've done is pretty remarkable. Actually, if you think about it, they've taken, these characters who are beloved in the comics. They started with Iron Man, gave a nice little tease at the end, wasn't too long, kind of talking about Avengers. Everybody's ears perked up. Oh, we're going to see that. They roll around Iron Man 2. They introduce, Black Widow, some more characters. Thor comes out. They introduce Hawkeye. So you kind of have all these other. So you're already getting kind of a little bit of a feeling for these characters even before there's an Avengers movie. And so obviously they did it right, but they did it in such a way that they had time on their side. They were willing to wait and build it from the start. Right. These new universes that we're talking about feel like they don't have that time on their side, I think. And that's exactly what they want to rush to do it now. They don't want to wait 5 movies, 6 movies down the line to get to the point where you can have an Avengers movie, where you can have an established franchise, and then you can have all these other characters then explode from that. They want to do it now, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to have all these characters with all these different actors, and you're going to shove it into your face, and you're going to love it. And it's like, you didn't learn from what Marvel did. Marvel
just did it in such a small way. Here's a hint.
Yeah, exactly.
here's an end credit sequence or whatever. They didn't cram it into the movie where you have to listen to 45 minutes of exposition about how it fits into the universe.
Exactly.
Which is what they do in this Mummy movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Iron Man is a self-contained movie. It has elements of of S.H.I.E.L.D. in it, but for the most part, that movie from start to finish is just about the origin of Iron Man. Then at the very, very end, they give you a 10-second bit of Nick Fury saying to Tony Stark, "Hey, I want to talk to you about the Avengers." and that's it.
That is one line.
One line. And then they move to the next movie, and Thor, they find Thor's hammer or whatever, and he's in a bar, and they say, "Oh, I want to talk to you about the Avengers," and it's like, "Oh, that's step number 2." But Thor again is pretty much a self-contained movie. If you look at it,
so is the first Captain America,
and the first and only Hulk movie.
Whereas, look at Batman versus Superman. They were continually talking about an expanded universe. Like, we got to get together. We got all these guys that are out there, and there's a big bad that's going to come and kill everybody. We got to rush and get everybody, together and form this group or whatever. And it's like, no, just have the movie as it is, and then maybe plan it, and then at the end kind of say, hey, we have some plans to do something more, afterwards. So they're just rushing and they're not learning from what has made Marvel so successful.
Well, I mean,
I also think they're. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say the thing with the Avengers is the Avengers was a massive hit, but by the time that movie had come out, there had been Iron Man, Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, Thor, and Captain America. 5 movies to set up the characters and set up the relationships and set up the love for that one movie.
And Black Widow and Hawkeye were already involved as well in those movies. Yeah, so you already had those guys too.
Yeah, so everybody that's in the Avengers, so they could kind of hit the ground running with kind of, not sequelitis, but it's usually when you're launching a character, the first movie is the origin story. And the second movie is the one where we don't have to explain anything, so we can just get right to the thing, which is why a lot of people like Superman 2 more than Superman, why The Dark Knight is thought of as the best of that series. Spider-Man 2 is thought of as the best of that series. So, before you can have your cake, you have to cook it. And the thing is, that is an interesting thing with The Mummy and with, let's look at Batman versus Superman. Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. You can see the marketing strategy in the title. We're introducing Batman and Superman, and they're having their fight. And then there's this completely other movie where Wonder Woman gets involved and where Lex Luthor creates this threat that unifies Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. I mean, that's essentially 2 movies worth of story crammed into one movie. And so we're not getting to know Batman or this Batman. Not that we necessarily need an origin story, but I think that's the main problem.
How did his parents die?
Exactly. And then The Mummy is half of the movie is about, the mummy and Tom Cruise's character discovering it and all that. And the other half of the movie is about Dr. Jekyll and his organization that goes around the world digging up these archaeological monsters and fighting them and all that kind of stuff. It's all of these movies are 2 movies crammed into one. And here's another example. None of us here have watched Guy Ritchie's King Arthur, but supposedly the plan for Guy Ritchie's King Arthur was this movie would set up a King Arthur connected universe where you'd have a Lancelot movies.
Sorry.
The Merlin
I'm never
movies.
going to not laugh at that.
No, I know, but here's the thing. So they made that movie that was supposed to set it up, and supposedly it tested through the floor. So they essentially, the movie that came out, this is the scuttlebutt, the movie that came out, they essentially made that movie twice. Once as a connected universe, first part of a connected universe. Once as the movie that ended up coming out. And
King Arthur looked so bad to me.
It did.
Like, I can't even express how bad it looked to me. And then when I heard it's supposed to be part of like 6 other movies, it made me hate it even more.
Exactly.
I was like, you stupid piece of that you think I'm going to pay to see. Well, yeah, for some reason, it really bothered me.
Well, that's an interesting reaction because I think, there's a lot of the, I'm always somebody that has a little trouble with my weight. So I've always try to figure out the best strategy for me to lose weight or whatever. And the fit people people that are out of shape.
And
that
you
I
thought
know,
you could see King Arthur and you'd lose your
Exactly.
appetite? Is that?
That's it.
Oh.
Maybe I should have seen that. No. So there's the people who usually need to lose weight. They're always trying to figure out a million different strategies. How can I do this? If I eat this less, if I do this, if I do that. Fit people that you talk to, how do you do it? Eat less, exercise. The list of things to be successful is too long. Step 1, eat less. Step 2, exercise. Step 3, you're done. That's it. But, people try to talk their way out of having to do the hard work, and I'm one of those people. How that relates to this is, what do you do to make a successful connected universe? Step 1, make a good movie.
Right.
That's
right.
it.
Exactly.
And all of them are trying to jump over step 1. The Mummy is a muddled mess. Batman versus Superman is a muddled mess. Iron Man is a fantastic movie. And what I'd like to point out is, so Iron Man came out, then the Hulk came out, which was a good movie on its own. The Incredible Hulk came out. Iron Man 2 came out, and Iron Man 2 was written in such a way, and this is actually... Jon Favreau has complained about this, and it's supposedly one of the reasons he stepped away from making Marvel movies, is they made him carry a bunch of water in Iron Man 2 to set up the Avengers. Now, when you ask the majority of people, what's the worst Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, most of them are going to say Iron Man 2, because even Marvel made the mistake of trying to do too much too fast.
I actually didn't like Iron Man 3.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Loved Iron Man 3, but I hear what you're saying. Because the Marvel movies just do the hard work. They tried to do a standalone movie that with Thor, which was fun. They did a standalone movie with Captain America, which was fun, and they did hard, difficult work of making 3 or 4 movies before the Avengers even got there that were either really good movies or just good, fun, enjoyable popcorn movies. And I think the studios, nobody wants a Transformers connected universe. Nobody
Not
wanted,
even you?
Not even me. Nobody wanted a Ghostbusters connected universe. I want a fun Ghostbusters movie, but I don't need spin-offs. There's no, the Fast and the Furious. Okay, they're going to have more cars. Got it. Check one. I would say the only successful studio that's successfully creating a connected universe from a living property is Star Wars. Yeah. And
which is also Disney.
Yeah, which is also Disney, but I think that's kind of more accidental. I don't know. Their first try at a connected universe movie was Rogue One, and what was Rogue One? It was a fantastic standalone movie on its own.
It's interesting that you bring that up too, because I was going to bring up Star Wars as well. Is that to see what they've done as well is they have started small with The Force Awakens, which was obviously it's a Star Wars movie, so right alone you already have a huge installed base of people who are going to want to see it regardless. But you go out and you basically reboot A New Hope. But you make it a good movie and you introduce all these new characters who can then take up the mantle of all the characters that you loved in the past. And then at that point, you have an entirely old generation of people who love those movies now are connected and highly anticipating the next ones. And you have a whole new generation of kids who are also highly invested in that franchise because they see all these new characters that, they made it, if they knew the old ones or not, they now know these new characters and they want to see what happens next. Then you bring along Rogue One and it turns out to be also a really good movie. And now they can pretty much do whatever they want. And they can, and as long as they make them decent, people are still going to shell out the money for them because they've made these 2 movies that have kind of established that, hey, look, we can make a good Star Wars movie. You'll be entertained.
That has nothing to do with the Skywalkers. Right.
It's not going to be so muddled and trying to do too much. And so come and see it, and then everybody will be like, yeah, Star Wars, let's go. So that's another example of how to do it right, by doing something kind of basic at first and then kind of expanding upon it.
Exactly. And that's the thing that was so magical, I thought, about the Marvel movies is, so they do these series of good movies. The Avengers comes out. Oh, wow, that's great. You know, their little stunt pulled off. Then, so they had built up this well of good feeling. So when they said, now we're going to have a movie about these weird characters that run around in space, and a talking raccoon is going to be a significant character in this movie. People were, if Guardians of the Galaxy had been the first movie to come out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, what I feel pretty confident in saying, it would have been a cult hit. It would have been a good movie, but it would have been like Serenity, where people that watched it really liked it, but the larger population would have been turned off by the weirdness, turned off by the unfamiliarity, and walked by it. But Marvel had built up so much goodwill that once they had the success of the first Guardians, then it was kind of like, we can do anything now. We can do magic. We can do a guy that's an ant. We can do anything, and they can just.
We could do Doctor Strange because that's a crazy one.
Yeah, we could do all of this stuff, and that's the thing. They built up essentially, modern audience members know studios are just throwing stuff out there. It's kind of a little bit of a con game. We're going to give you trailers that you may or may not like. We're going to give you trailers that look like spectacular things, and the movies that they actually promote may or may not actually end up resembling the trailers that you're seeing. So once you've built up that reservoir of, we are going to promise you X, we deliver X over and over and over, they're going to have to make 4 or 5 movies in a row that are awful before people will start saying, wow, maybe, Marvel's lost it.
Yeah. And here's the thing about those movies too, is that, they're throwing all these interesting and strange characters out there, like Doctor Strange and Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever, but the movies are still good. That's the main important thing, is that, there are different characters that maybe people who are outside of comics have no idea who they are, but the movies are still good. They're still funny. They still have, they're well produced. Yeah. They're not muddled. They're not, trying to do too much. So even though they've established themselves, the Marvel Universe, they're still keeping to kind of that core. As long as we deliver a decent movie, it's going to be successful format. Whereas Batman versus Superman, again, going back to it, just cramming everything in there and just, hoping that it sticks isn't going to work.
Right.
I keep thinking of, sorry.
Keep going, Sonia.
I keep thinking of the idea of that these studios are trying to create almost like a bingeable movie experience.
Yes.
Like that you're going to watch the first one, and because you watched the first one, you're going to watch the second one no matter what. And I don't think that's necessarily true. And if you look at this list that, you wrote here, Smith, that you mentioned, the good ones, the main thing is a character.
Right.
Like a good character that you care about. And that's why Star Wars, Force Awakens, Rogue One, that's why those worked. That's why, I don't really care for the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, because I can't even remember those characters now.
Eddie Redmayne. Eddie Redmayne. Everybody loves Eddie Redmayne. It's the Eddie Redmayne character.
That's the actor's name.
I know.
That's the actor's name.
But you know what I'm talking about.
But that's why Star Trek works, because there's characters. But, I don't know if that's really a connected universe. But you know what I mean.
It is exactly a connected universe. And I am not going to go into the screed of Star Trek was the first connected universe. But it was.
But this is why, the Marvel movies work, because you care about all those characters. So you will come to the next movie. I saw Suicide Squad and I was like, that's cool. I'm not going to see the next one. I don't care about any of those people. I didn't see Superman or Batman v Superman, although I might go back to Batman v Superman now because I really like Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I really like her. That's how much I like Wonder Woman. I'll go back now and watch a movie that I already
see the extended
terrible.
version.
Yeah.
See the extended version.
That's
all I'll say.
That is interesting because I found myself going back. I found myself excited to go back and watch Batman versus Superman because there is a nice thing where when you take the time to set up all these characters, they don't need to come into these big movies, these big crossover movies, and do a huge song and dance. Like, that was one of the huge problems with Batman versus Superman is Batman has to have his time to do his song and dance, and Superman has to have his time to do his song and dance, and then we're introducing... So
is Batman's song and dance to Bat Dance by Prince?
Oh my God. No, it's to the Bat Tusi.
Okay. Well, that's cool too.
But and with
rest in peace, Adam West.
Exactly. And then with I love the way that they treated Ant-Man in Captain America: Civil War, which they open up a van door, he pops out. We already know everything about him because of the movie he was already in. We don't need to waste any audience time setting anything up. It's just he's there. 5 minutes later, he's doing his Ant-Man thing, and it's a hell of a lot of fun to watch. And by spending more times developing the character, it gives you so much more of the ability to, because that was the thing about Civil War. Is it was sold as this movie's going to have Iron Man, it's going to have Captain America, and it's going to have Vision, it's going to have Black Widow, it's going to have a million different people, more than either of the Avengers movies, all in this one movie. And it's going to be great. And because we've had all these other movies, we don't need to explain any of it. It's still a fantastic character piece between Tony and Steve Rogers, and that's it.
Right.
Yeah, no, you're
that's
exactly.
Why a Transformer connected universe. It's like, who cares?
Exactly.
Who cares? Do you remember any character from that movie, Smith? From any of them? Like, who cares if there's any kind of connected universe? And that's the problem with The Mummy.
Yeah.
Who cares? Yeah. I don't care if I see any of those people ever again.
So
any of them.
And Civil War actually went even above and beyond that. Whereas not only did they bring in characters from other movies like Ant-Man and and all the Avengers characters, and and all the newer characters, some of the other new characters from other. They introduced 2 new characters to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in Black Panther and Spider-Man, who we hadn't seen before. Right. So not only did they bring in all these other guys who we already knew about, we were introduced as Marvel has done in previous movies with Black Widow and Hawkeye and all these other characters. We were introduced to 2 new characters who are now going about, and they're going to have their own movies. So just the same way that Wonder Woman is now getting her own movie, and she made her debut in Batman v Superman, but they're doing it more in a subtle way than kind of making her a larger character in that movie.
Right. So last two things. How are we feeling about the future of the DC extended universe now that Wonder Woman has come out and shown, Wonder Woman has done the hard work. It is set up a character. It's done a traditional origin story that was very satisfying to a lot of people. There are rumors that Warner Brothers is kind of on pause with everything having to do with the DC Extended Universe until Justice League comes out later this year to see how it performs. Because if it underperforms, that'll be 3 out of 4 Extended Universe movies that underperform, which I don't know any studio head that can kind of survive that.
Well, they all make a lot of money.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah,
it's more. Yeah. It's more like they're kind of critical missteps, but they all make a lot of money. Well, Wonder Woman's just their first one to make a lot of money, and it's beloved.
I would disagree with you somewhat. They did make an awful lot of money, but compared to other movies, they didn't make that much. I mean, for example, the idea that Deadpool could make more money, which it did, than Batman versus Superman is kind of crazy. And I think that's a mark of the quality problem is it retards the amount of money you can make because you don't have that business coming back. Because since I've seen Wonder Woman, I've been itching to go back and see it again. That was not a reaction I had to Batman versus Superman. But
you know what? Now that you bring up Deadpool, actually, that's another franchise that they are trying to convert into an extended universe. Whereas they're going to have an X-Force movie, right? Which is a team of mutants who Deadpool was once a part of, and then they're also planning on having other movies that are associated or tied with Deadpool. So that's another one they're trying to do it. And luckily they did it right with the Deadpool by including some X-Men characters in it already. So maybe it'll be a success, but that's to be seen.
So last but not least, speaking of
we didn't even talk about all the X-Men movies.
No, we didn't.
Yeah. That one. So
we have this week the Black Panther trailer dropped. Now that's a movie that's coming out next year. Before we even get to it, Thor Ragnarok is coming out this year. So I
think Thor Ragnarok looks so good.
It's gonna be exactly. I mean, we are salivating 6 months out before it comes out, and 9 months.
Homecoming.
Exactly, which is coming out in a couple of weeks. So we got in a couple of weeks we got one. In 4 or 5 months we have another, and in 9 months we have a third movie coming out. Peter Brown, what is your impressions of the Black Panther preview?
Yeah, so I'll just go and say when I first heard that Black Panther was going to be in Civil War, I didn't know how to react because I've never really been a Black Panther fan in the comics. But I was never a Captain America fan in the comics either. And now I think of all the Marvel Cinematic Universe characters, I think my favorite is Captain America. So I wasn't sure how I would like Black Panther, but in Civil War, he was really good, really amazing. And I really loved how they brought him in. And watching the trailer even made me think now I really, really want to see this movie. It looks gorgeous. It looks like it's just kind of off-world. It almost looks alien in a lot of ways, all the characters and all the different settings that they have, and that's kind of interesting that we'll get to see Wakanda, which I believe is the country, the fictional country that they are in. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. I think it looks great.
So
I agree. I agree. I got really excited when I saw it. I think it looks really good. I don't know anything about Black Panther. Right. I didn't, I knew that he was going to be in Civil War, and I was like, gosh, there's already going to be so many characters. Do we really need another one? And then I see him and I was like, oh no, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Like I'm glad he's in there. And then I see this preview and I'm like, yeah, I'm in. I'm like, I like it.
Well, that's the other thing is there's almost like a Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of vibe in that they're talking about this magical land that no one's ever visited before. And it's shrouded in mystery, so much mystery that people were looking for it on a different continent. They connected up with the Legends of El Dorado, which I think was very cool and very, because correct me if I'm wrong, but the Kingdom of Wakanda is supposed to be kind of shut to outsiders in this mysterious, kind of technically advanced African nation that has sealed itself off from the rest of the world.
You're right.
That's the thing is it's going to take several bad movies in the Marvel universe before I start worrying. This one, and just the thought of Ryan Coogler, who made Creed, which for my money might be the best Rocky movie ever made. To have a talent at that level working in this movie, I'm very excited for a character I've never thought twice about. I liked him a lot in Captain America Civil War, but I have never picked up. I don't even know if I've seen a Black Panther comic book now that I think about it.
The only time I've ever had any real is in Avengers comics. That's the only time, because he's been an Avenger many times. So when he's in an Avenger comic, I'll read it because he's in there. But like, I've never picked up like a solo title or anything of a comic book from him, just because I don't like the character. But like here in the cinematic universe, it looks amazing, and I'm super excited to see what the movie is going to be.
Yeah, man. So yeah. So Ryan Coogler worked on the screenplay. Joe Robert Cole also worked on the screenplay, who wrote a lot of The People versus O.J. Simpson. So, man, this has got some serious serious talent behind it. Like, actually looking at it, I'm almost wondering from a writer-director point of view, has there been a better Marvel Cinematic Universe with kind of behind the camera talent? I guess Joss Whedon, you could say, with the Avengers, but a lot of the directors of Marvel movies have not been as polished and as, I don't want to say talented, right, but I'll just say talented as Ryan Coogler. Wow. Who's
the guy's doing the Captain America movies and Civil War and all that? That's the Russo brothers, am I right?
Now, that's the thing, is that's the Russo brothers, and they are fantastic.
But before that, you were like, who?
Exactly. Before
now they're doing the Avengers movie too.
Exactly. Before they did Captain America Winter Soldier, which I believe was their first thing, they were most famous for doing the paintball episodes of Community.
Oh, right. That's right. I forgot that.
Which they're fantastic episodes, but I kick Hollywood suits around all day, but I have to commend whoever had the foresight of saying, hey, these guys do some pretty good half-hour television comedies. Let's gift them our flagship superhero movie.
Yeah. Right. One of the other things I liked about the trailer is that they also had a bunch of characters who, as we were talking about before, are back in this one that we've already seen. Like we have Martin Freeman as the kind of government agent. He's talking to Claw, who we saw from Age of Ultron.
Right.
He got, that's where he lost his arm. He becomes this kind of supernatural guy. I think maybe he'll be in this movie. I don't know. And then we also saw the bodyguard to the Black Panther, and she looks like she's going to kick just a whole bunch of ass in this movie too, which is cool. Right. Because she was facing down against Black Widow, I think, in Civil War, which I thought was going to be an interesting fight if they were going to go at it. But it looks like we'll actually get to see her kind of do some stuff. So they're bringing characters back into this one as well, who we've already seen. So you don't have to. So when they open the trailer up, those two characters that are already talking, even though it's not the Black Panther. You see who they are, and they've been in previous movies.
Yeah. Holy cow. Yeah. All right. So I think we figured it out. Step 1, make a good movie.
Yep.
It's all, you're welcome, Hollywood.
Step 2, just connect them a little bit and then just keep making good movies. And that's all you have to do. So,
right.
Anything else you would like to say, Peter?
No.
Sonia?
Nah, I'm good.
Well, let me talk for another 20 minutes. Just kidding. On to our next topic.
And that brings us to my favorite segment, what we're dorking out about this week. I'm just going to jump right in and say that what I'm kind of dorking out about this week is that Netflix recently announced that they have canceled 2 of their TV shows. So they canceled Sense8, which I actually haven't watched, but here is very good. Smith, have you watched that one?
I haven't. I've heard it's between mediocre and good.
Okay.
And
I have friends who super love it, and they're really bummed about this.
I'm interested to check it out because it's spearheaded by the Wachowski sisters. Mm-hmm. And I have to say that their batting average recently has made me like, I'm gonna wait for the buzz on this before I jump in.
Well, at least it's going to be interesting. It's going to be something.
Maybe.
But I haven't watched it. But they also canceled The Get Down, which people who listen to the show know I'm a really big fan of The Get Down. I was super into it. So that really disappoints me. And the reason I'm kind of dorking out about this is because Netflix doesn't release any ratings on their shows or specials. And so when you watch a show on network television, you kind of know it's a bomb. You know, it's like, you know that people aren't watching it. But on Netflix, you really don't know. You kind of have to go by buzz. Like, oh, not that many people are talking about The Get Down. Maybe it's not that popular. Like, you don't know.
Right.
And that's one of these bummers about watching these bingeable shows on things like Hulu and Netflix, and you don't know. So, like, I could not mentally prepare myself for the fact that there wasn't going to be another season of The Get Down.
Did they, where did it end? Did it end on a cliffhanger? Did it end at a place where you're really leaning forward, or?
I'm bummed because the whole show, every episode, kind of begins and ends with present day.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't know, you know what happens to like the lead, but you don't know how he got there, and you don't know what happened to all the people around him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really want to know what happened to those people, and I'm really bummed that I don't get to find out. I really like The Get Down. I was into it.
Oh, yeah, well, damn.
And this bums me out because I have to say, like, I don't watch like a ton of network television anymore. And the shows I have been watching are shows that kind of came to natural conclusions. Like, I used to watch Parks and Recreation, or I watched The Office, or, you know, things like that came to an end when they had preparation for the end. So I get that closure. I have to say, it's been a little while since I watched something that got the rug pulled out from under it, and I didn't get that closure. So I'm kind of bummed.
That does kind of suck. That was the
and there's all these outlets for watching TV, and I'm like, could one of these other outlets like give me like a couple more episodes of The Get Down so I could get some closure?
That's actually interesting because well, you know what? No, I don't think you could. Because the whole thing about Netflix is you're coming to us. And hasn't there been kind of a little write-in campaign with Netflix?
There has been for Sense8, and Sense8 said that, okay, so Sense8, there was a big campaign, and Netflix actually considered it. They were considering bringing it back, and then they wrote a big letter explaining, like, we just can't do it. We can't bring it back.
Right. And I think what they said was, thanks for writing. We appreciate it. But no, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that is the thing, because I think that is a nice thing. That's another nice thing about the current era of television is when a show's going to end, usually they're able to tell the creators soon enough that they can write up some ending, and that actually makes the show kind of more valuable when it goes onto Netflix, because you know it's not just going to switch off like a light. Yeah. And you're not going to watch up to the last episode and be frustrated.
Right. Because it's not like, I'm just going to, like, I don't know. I can't even think of a network show that I could talk about, but like, what's the one called? There's the one called like Doubt, or, you know, they all have these vague names.
Right.
Like, it's not like one of those shows where it airs like 4 times and then it gets canceled and you're like, meh.
Who cares? Didn't
you
see
know,
it anyway.
like Get Down had like 12 or 13 episodes.
Right.
You know, so, and there's a story there, and there's a beginning and a middle, and now we don't get the end. And so I feel like it's a little different, but I understand that not every show can last forever. But
exactly. Well,
it's a little disappointing.
HBO's gone through this a little bit with The Leftovers, which I haven't even seen one episode. It's been 3 seasons, and they're done. They've done 3 seasons. Well,
I think they gave them the heads up, like, this is your last season.
Yeah, and my understanding is season 2 was fantastic, and season 3 was fantastic, from what I hear. I couldn't get through season 1, which is why I don't know.
I didn't bother.
My understanding is it was kind of a choppy season 1, vastly improved season 2, and then improved season 3. So,
you know what? I remember seeing the previews for that, and there was the woman in her car and her baby's in the car, and then her baby's not in the car.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm out. Not even watching it. Not even gonna watch the pilot. Nope.
Yeah. It's tough. I watched the first. It's one of those shows that I think came after Breaking Bad, and I think the first why I stopped watching it is, Breaking Bad had come out, Mad Men had come out, and all these Damon Lindelof did it, who's famous for Lost, and he's all like, "All right, this is my first HBO show. I'm really going to swing for the fences," and I think it was a little bit. Back when Showtime and HBO first started to have television shows, you could tell they were kind of showing the audience, hey, we can do anything we want, because there would be nudity all over the place.
Right.
And now the nudity all over the place with cable shows is we can make people dislikable. We can make them hard and awful and mean to each other, and just everybody's grim and gritty and blah, blah, blah. The first couple episodes are kind of like that. And when you combine that with a certain percentage of the population vanishing, a lot of them being kids or airline pilots or whatever. Yeah, that's
I couldn't do that one.
Yeah.
What are you dorking out about this week, Smith?
I am dorking out about binging, and I know that we're against binging, pretty much against binging on this show. But there is a neat little, with so much out there, there is a neat little feature of modern television watching where for, a couple years I did not have Showtime. But I said we were going to talk about Twin Peaks, and we were excited for Twin Peaks. So I got a subscription to Twin Peaks, and I forgot that Brian Koppelman, who does a podcast called The Moment, who I really, really love, did a show on Showtime called Billions with Paul Giamatti and
and Damian Lewis.
Captain Winters. He's always Captain Winters in my heart. Maggie Siff and Melaine Ackerman are in it, and it's about Bobby Axelrod, head of Axe Capital, big hedge fund guy, against Paul Giamatti, district attorney for the Southern District of New York or something. Essentially, he's the Wall Street's cop, prosecutor. And I've heard a huge amount of buzz. There were 2 seasons saved up because I hadn't had Showtime for so long. And so my wife and I just tore through them, and holy cow, that's a good show. It's different because it's not like everybody's grim and gritty or whatever. They're all nuanced characters, but there's Paul Giamatti is married to hold on for a moment. Paul Giamatti is married to Maggie Siff, who also works for Bobby Axelrod. So it's the picture of these 2 marriages, Damian Lewis and Melaine Ackerman as people who were born poor but became hyper rich, and Maggie Siff and Paul Giamatti, who are kind of professionals who have always kind of had money, but and Paul Giamatti's thinking about running for governor and all this stuff. So it's this really interesting portrait of 2 marriages, portrait of the hyper rich and the effects of the hyper rich and different types of rich people, and it is just really interesting. The cat and mouse relationship between Damian Lewis and Paul Giamatti is just a whole lot of fun to watch. And season 2 ends with a series of episodes that are really spectacular.
Maybe it's worth keeping Showtime after Twin Peaks for me to watch this.
There are several shows on Showtime that I'm going to kind of catch up on because I've heard The Affair is good.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
I watched the first season and it was good, but it was kind of like, I don't know where this is going. And then now I guess there are like 4 seasons.
Right.
So I can catch up on, and I've heard it's gotten really good.
I bailed on. I used to have Showtime, and I watched Homeland, and then I bailed on it after, 2 seasons, I think.
That is interesting because I used to have Showtime like 5 or 6 years ago, back when there was Homeland, there was the L Word. They had a series of pretty good shows, and they were kind of coming on like a latter day HBO.
Mm-hmm.
But the weird thing about Showtime shows is the first seasons would always be really, really good.
Like the first season of Weeds was super good.
Yeah.
And then that show got bananas.
First
I was
season,
like, I'm out.
Exactly. That's what I heard. First season of Weeds was really good, goes off the rails. First season of Homeland, really good, goes off the rails. First season of the L Word, really good, goes. And then that one went all over the place. That one went off the rails. So they had this habit of making really good shows that got a lot of buzz, and then a couple seasons in, they would get kind of a bad reputation of, but at least so far for seasons 1 and 2 for Billions, I think it's one of those shows where it started out pretty good, and let's see where this is going, and it's ramping up and up and up in terms of drama and quality and engagement, and it's really good.
I'll put it on my list.
So, yes, Billions, it's fantastic. So, and yeah, I'm only coming here 3 years late. 2 years late, to tell you. First season came out in 2016, so a year and a half late.
Hey, that's what's awesome about all these great TV shows is they're always there for you to catch up on.
That's right. So be here in 4 years when I give my review for FX
of the Americans.
The Americans.
Me too.
Oh, sweet Christmas. All right, Sonia Mansfield, is there anything else that you have to say?
I'll just say, Nick, and goodbye.
Bye.
The Dorking Out Show is on Twitter at Dorking Out Show, where you can find Chris at Jet Jurgens and Sonia at The Sonia Show. You can read about Sonia's random adventures at thesoniashow.com and track the slow and creeping progress of Chris's novel and his other hijinks at jetjurgens.com. You can find out more about The Dorking Out Show at dorkingoutshow.com. While you're over there, you can support us by giving us a review on iTunes. We have a handy-dandy iTunes link to whisk you right back to 2007, where you can leave your review and 5-star rating in iTunes. We'd do it for your podcast. Want to dork out even more? Well, you can sign up for our newsletter, where you'll get all the headlines we use as fuel for the show. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening.